demeanor.
Here we go. Welcome to Les Idiots do Cinema, the movie review podcast where two generations of film fans who work in the entertainment industry talk about what's great and what sucks. And following the lead of the great William Goldman, we try to remember his adage, nobody knows anything, most especially J.P. Bernardo. I am Adam Paul, an actor, writer, and director in Hollywood for more than 30 years, and I'm joined by award-winning editor J.P. Bernardo, who aforementioned doesn't know anything, whose work includes Netflix's Outer Banks, ABC's Blackish, and cult favorites Firefly and Warehouse 13. I'm also joined by actor Anthony Caro, who is currently in the Netflix comedy Unstable, where you can watch it on Netflix. All right, so this week we're reviewing LucasFilm and Disney's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the fifth installment of the Indiana Jones franchise, following daredevil archaeologist Indiana Jones as he races against time to retrieve a legendary dial that can change the course of history. Directed by James Mangold, with a screenplay by Mangold, Jez Butterworth, David Koepp, and John-Henry Butterworth, and story by George Lucas and Phillip Kaufman, it stars Harrison Ford, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and Mads Mikkelsen, was released on June 30th, has a runtime of 2 hours and 34 fucking minutes, and is rated PG-13. First of all, gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We're all having each other, as it turns out. It's not just me, although I've been throwing my weight around because I can't tolerate any wastage of time at this point. So before we even get into our deep dive on the film, we are going to rate it with no explanation. We rate the films on a scale of 1 through 5 as follows. 1, worth seeing in the theater. 2, worth renting. 3, wait for streaming. 4, tolerate viewing when your partner gets to choose what to watch. Or 5, fake your own death to avoid seeing it. JP, because you've been my punching bag, I'm going to give you first evaluation. What is your rate number? No explanation.
I will give this a 4. Barely getting a 4. Very close to a 5.
Tolerate viewing.
No. Oh, it's a 4.
Tolerate viewing when your partner gets to choose what to watch.
Okay.
Holy crap.
I'll go.
Go.
This
Please.
was a 3 for me.
Wait for streaming.
I would say this was barely a 3 for me. But I'm still giving it a 3.
Well, gentlemen, I'm giving it a 1, worth seeing in the theater.
I knew Adam would enjoy the film. The minute that I detested it so much, I was like, well, Adam will love it. Adam will love it.
As much in a text.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, go ahead,
I cannot wait to have a verbal discourse with you about this film, because I had some serious issues on multiple levels.
I'm retiring.
Well, in that case, what are we drinking?
Same for the goddaughter.
Dad told me you found something on a train during the war. A dial that could change the course of history.
Hitler made mistakes, and with this, I will correct them all. You stole it. Then you stole it.
And then I stole it. It's called capitalism.
Give him hell, Indiana Jones!
Boilerplate spoiler alert.
I will say this. I saw this in a very crappy theater, and I will admit that it influenced my experience. As always, I'm a big believer in trying to see this in the best possible theater. A lot of films, I talk about years and years ago, I saw Swingers before it was released on a VHS tape that had 15 time codes in it, and I thought it was the most enjoyable thing in the world. A great film will be a great film no matter how you watch it. You can watch it on your little phone. It's still going to be great. A terrible film needs as much help as it can get. And this is a terrible film. So seeing it in a crappy theater only hurts it even more. So I will admit that maybe if I'd seen it at the world premiere in IMAX or in the Dolby Theater, I may not have been so harsh. But I saw it like a normal American. So that's where I'm coming from. This movie is abysmal. It's awful. we talked about the horrible CGI in The Flash.
Yeah.
This isn't as bad, but this is for $300 million. They should all be ashamed of themselves. It's not once did. Let me take that back. I stayed through the credits. They filmed this in Sicily, and they filmed it in Morocco. And I guess that there are maybe 47 shots in this movie that aren't CGI enhanced in one way or another. And all of those shots were, I was like, oh, it's so nice to actually be in a real location, as opposed to this New York they were in, which looked nothing. I mean, I know it's supposed to be a period piece, but you looked at it and it just looked weird. I was like, this doesn't look right. It just looked weird. It looked video.
I totally disagree. I thought it looked like New York in the late 60s.
Yeah, I agree. That didn't bother me as much.
All right.
It's fun. I mean, you live there practically, so I guess you would know more than me.
1969 he didn't.
Well,
that's true, but still, it is, and that's just. I mean, I'm just getting started. There's no reason. There was no real story that needed to be told here, and the story that they did come up with, I personally have a hard time when a television show or a movie, when they end one season and everything's happy and they all got married, which is what happened in the last one, and this one starts off and everyone's miserable, and you're like, wait, what happened? And instead of doing something interesting like, oh, let's show this progression of going from happiness to sadness back to happiness, we just started sadness and we have to get all this backstory. Oh, he's not with Marion anymore. Oh, his son died. And I'm like, well, this would have kind of been nice to see, because we have 2.5 hours to tell a story. They told Les Mis in 2.5 hours. Surely they could tell this little story, but no. And also, I believe that this was a movie that probably was 5 hours long when it was the original cut of it, because things just don't feel right.
I agree.
The relationship with him and her, she has next to zero character. And then she has this change, okay, their motivation is very clearly stated. She's in it for the money. She says that from the beginning. She's in it for the money.
Right.
He's in it for this very weak, oh, they're going to think I killed this woman in my office because he left a bloody handprint on the phone. And that's ridiculous.
His motive was so weak.
Weak as could be.
So weak. And they just sprinkle it in. There's not an establishment of it. It's literally just, oh, it's because I'll get framed. Oh, okay. I just have to buy that this 75-year-old man is just going to go on this insane excursion just for that reason. I didn't buy it. Made no sense.
Didn't buy it at all. There was no connection between the two of them. You didn't feel anything between the two of them. And at the end, when she's finally feeling bad for him, you're like, why?
Where did this come from? Yeah, where did this come from?
And again, maybe in the 5-hour version it was there. Yeah. So listen, this is why I think there was a 5-hour version. There was a visual thing when we were in New York and we're in the exciting chase on the horse. He is clearly in Wall Street. He passes by the stock exchange building and he goes down into the subway. And the next cut, he's at 59th Street. And you know this because you see the tile. And I'm like, I don't think that the movie makers would have made such a terrible mistake. And also, I even went and looked in history and I watched where the parade went. And it started from downtown and it didn't go all the way up to 59th Street. So they were trying to be historically accurate. So what I think happened is there was probably this long chase in the subway going from Wall Street all the way to 59th with him on the motorcycle on the tracks and the horse. And then he came up and then they went back down. And like every chase in this movie, it went on for way too long. I think they cut it down.
Oh my God.
I think this is the shortened with no, Here's the thing. This is like a James Bond film, all right? You know the protagonist is not going to die. So these chases are not about suspense. These chases are either about it's a beautiful, grand, like epic, like Bond usually does a good job with this. Like in Spectre, where a whole building falls down, where you have this huge spectacle. It's either that or it's when the protagonist comes up with a very clever way or does something intelligent that gets him out of this bind. And it's very satisfying to watch. But a chase where simply he finally goes to the other track and the motorcycle can't go, and you end on this terrible quip, like, what does he say? The public transportation is still faster when he finally gets on the subway.
That to like the lady on the train. That got a laugh in our theater, and I was like, what was funny about that line? I didn't understand.
Ask Adam, because Adam evidently loved it.
Yeah, what did you think?
I didn't think that was a particularly funny line, although there is a very funny line he has where he tells the German not to try to be funny, and because he's German, and I laughed out loud at that, but I was the only person laughing at that in the theater.
Yes.
Look, you invited me to talk, so now I'm going to talk. I thought I agree with you. Every chase scene is too long, and 2 hours and 34 minutes is too long for any movie, any studio movie like this. It's ridiculous. There's just no point. So they're filling it with all kinds of bullshit. That said, well, here's what I appreciated about the movie. It is from the beginning a story about the passage of time. And that is, it works on it works on great levels, right? It works on the level of our experience of Harrison Ford, of Indiana Jones's journey, of 5 movies, some better than others, and of what we anticipate here is that his age is going to play a part in the story. And of course, we've all read everything that this is it for Harrison Ford playing the part. So yes. I really appreciated that. And I appreciated the reality that it opens. Well, I'm a space guy, right? I'm a moon landing guy. So it opens with the parade with Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Mike Collins, the ticker tape parade in New York, which is the very imposition, and it affects his school teaching on that day, right? It is the very imposition of the future on the past, and a man who deals with antiquities that is poetically very enjoyable. Now, spoiler alert, we already just delivered the spoiler alert, but the reality is this, that him not dying is, in fact, the worst part of the whole film. He should have died or stayed back in time like he wanted to. That would have been a fantastic ending for him to just be left back there, presumably to die, but in his happy place.
I disagree. I think that would have been super predictable. I actually liked that he didn't die in the end because it felt like the most unpredictable part of the movie.
Well, I mean, for me, they left it. They'd made the mistake of leaving it open for another adventure just before the end credits, where he reaches and takes the hat, which is drawing on a clothesline. He pulls that out. Like, who knows? The end ? That was disappointing to me. I wish that.
Shockingly, I'm going to agree with you, Adam. I suspect that was the ending at one point.
Right.
It seems the most, like, in terms of why have another one, like, because the ending of the last one really tied things up.
Yeah. I'm right. They get married, happy ending, the whole thing.
Yes.
That said, let me just continue my rant.
Please.
I thought Phoebe Waller-Bridge was remarkable. I think they pulled off a very sophisticated trick by partnering her with him without leaning into a love story between them. And yet she is still attractive and someone that you want to follow. I thought her character was great. I mean, I'm a fan of hers anyway, but I think her take on this character was great. I think I was discussing with somebody this morning, they didn't need to show her, whoever she was betrothed to, who took off. There's a scene in Morocco where a guy shows up with a knife and tries to kill her, cut her head off. That was completely unnecessary.
Wait, what? I don't even remember that.
It's happened when they're running around.
In Morocco, there's actually
her ex-lover.
Yeah, that was all to show that she could have an ex-lover, that she wasn't gay or something, but totally unnecessary. And in fact, the chemistry that she, and I disagree with you completely, I thought the chemistry that she and Harrison Ford had was excellent. She is a wonderful inheritor of Marion's storyline and character persona of this rough and tumble woman who lives her own life and wears pants and drinks and, you know, gambles and all the fun romantic stuff that women of the time were not allowed to do, even in 1969. So I just felt like, in fact, she was a terrific addition, and that dynamic was well placed. Whether or not, and I would watch her taking over that franchise. I would watch a few movies of Phoebe Waller-Bridge running around like Indiana Jones, right? Laura Croft, but without the tits.
Wow.
That's not going to happen. I think at one point that was the hope.
Right. Yeah, that would make sense.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I wish I hear everything you say.
Yes.
I just don't. I did not feel the same way about her character. I found her.
Did you like her performance?
Not particularly.
Oh,
really?
You weren't paying attention.
I liked her performance.
Her performance.
I didn't think that she brought anything really to it that you couldn't get from another actress.
Well, do you think that's her fault as an actor, or more of the character?
Yes. No.
Oh, really? Who
yes.
Do you have someone in mind? If you can think of someone on top of your head, who would you have put in that role? That you? I
don't have an answer for you. This is the first time I've even thought about that. I simply am. Pardon me. Well, if I do, I'll let you know who I think would have knocked it out of the park. Even in the same way that Karen Allen did in the first one. Like, she had that spunk that I didn't quite pick up with Phoebe Waller. Something.
Maybe it was her. Did she have a true arc as a character?
No, I don't think she did.
She started out as a thief. Then all of a sudden, I think the first glimpse we see of her showing like that she cares about Indiana is on the boat when she is talking about the she's interpreting the tablet.
Right.
And then in the end, she has the dynamite in the back of her hand. And
really, it's underwater when she saves him. She takes that tablet and was going to leave him there, and then all of a sudden she realized.
Oh, I didn't even get that because it was so.
I didn't get that either, Adam.
It was very dark as well. It was all very dark.
It was so congested with all the eels.
Right.
It really was. It was the whole underwater sequence. Really, like, I was having problems with it in many levels. But one, I wasn't being able to follow exactly what was going on. At one point, it looked like one of the lines was tied around something.
Yeah, and it just gets magic.
And then it was emphasized that 3 minutes was the maximum. Like, they pounded down 3 minutes, and then that really didn't pay off at all.
Again.
They just came back up. Then the Nazis cut the line of one of the people, but not all of them. And then I was like, well, why? They know they have to come up. Why didn't they just wait for them to come up? Why cut the lines of any of them? Like, there were weird logic that was supposed to create suspense that really just made me go, why are they doing this? Except because you want that shot of one guy, the red shirt, if I'm using Star Trek, dying and making the other three. Like, Adam, it just didn't make sense.
And then another thing that bothered me is they do the dynamite sequence and they jump on the boat and get away. And then they think she misleads them with what she tells them, Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Right.
And so they think they're going west or east, can't remember, and whatever, one direction. And then they're going away and you're like, okay, great. She misled them. They're in the clear. And then you get some weird, like, CGI green screen of Mads Mikkelsen looking through the binoculars with the map behind him. And then all of a sudden he's like, they're not going east. They're going west. And then all of a sudden he knows exactly where they're going. What? That was the weakest plot point ever. Like, the fact that these villains were able to keep up with them, it made no sense in so many instances. And I couldn't.
How about Indy getting shot right here and for 20 minutes bleeding out and being totally fine? Right here, Adam.
There was a point where I forgot that had even happened until they're in Syracuse, which was ridiculous. Him meeting Archimedes. What the hell was that? That was so dumb. That was so cheesy, like beyond Indiana Jones cheesy. And then I remembered he had a gun wound in him because she was like so urgent.
She suddenly attends to it. And I'm like, this is...
Listen, let me just tell you something. First of all, your heart is not here.
I understand that, but no, I know.
But it would have gotten his lung, and he probably would have had some sort of lung problem. So
not to mention, there's a whole sequence where he pulls her. He's like she's about to fall out of the plane because the guy's hanging off her leg, and he's like pulling her in and doing a lot with this massive wound in his chest.
Yeah.
And that's why I forgot about it, because I was like, oh, he's at 100% capability of any other human being, but he has a gun wound in his chest.
Let me add something. Our argument, we discovered something in our last episode that I think is very important, which is that when you add the multiverse to something, it immediately takes away any stakes, because at any time you can revisit a character that gets killed or whatever. And this time travel thing does the same thing. You could have left Indiana Jones back in the past, not seen him die, and then you could have a sequel if you wanted to. And Harrison Ford had the fortitude for it to bring him back because Archimedes had a first aid kit or some shit to get the bullet out of his chest. Anyway, another weak point on this thing. I still think it's worth seeing in the theater. There's a great deal of really fun. Look, Anthony's right. He called it yesterday. Well, you just liked it for the nostalgia, and he's not wrong. The first film is probably a perfect film. There's nothing wrong with that first film. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Wait, there was something else I was going to say, but now I forgot. Okay, go ahead.
Here's my concern. This is your number one movie. Any other number one movie you give now, it loses a lot of credibility in my book.
Maybe some people. Listen, I just had a conversation. I had breakfast with a film professor who agreed with me.
Hey, you're a film professor now.
I know. I thank you very much. I know I am, but he's more of a film professor than I am. Wow. I just teach acting. He teaches the whole Megillah, and he was like, I loved it. He's the guy who said they shouldn't have shown her husband, or her ex-husband or whatever. He's a very thoughtful fella. Anyway,
this is just evidence as to why you should never go to film school. If two film professors call this a good movie, you guys are losing it.
Listen, I'm not saying it's the best movie I've ever seen. I will say it was fun and better than The Flash, even though the CGI of youthening Harrison Ford I thought was okay, and terrifying for what the future will bring. But again, for a $300 million movie, from Disney and LucasFilm, you'd expect something perfect. And I saw a lot of uncanniness, which is something.
Can I just, something that I find humorous? So we all know about the de-aging of Harrison Ford. What no one's talking about is that they cast Mads Mikkelsen, who they also de-age, but he only looks about 10 years younger. He looks the exact same age. Why did they not cast another 80-year-old? Because I was like, well, that was weird. Like, they tried to make him look younger, and they just stay eternally youthful.
They all made a pact with the devil. Everybody knows that. That's a good point.
I mean, you have to admit that was ridiculous when you think about it.
That too. I did think about that.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, okay, we spent $100 million.
I was really expecting him to have a big scar or something on the side of his face, because he gets whacked on the train.
Yeah. No wounds.
And they really set it up. You see his profile in the window in the current year, and then he like turns. And the whole time I was expecting a reveal of some.
You think they were going to add some
evil gash,
some gash in post?
Yeah,
I don't know. Whatever. It was.
So I have other issues.
Oh,
as a fan of the series, and all of us acknowledging that this is the last one that Harrison Ford is going to be in. The first four films set up certain things that I was excited to see. They're tiny little things, but they mean a lot to me. The very first one was the fact that the Paramount logo always transformed into either a mountain. In the second one, it was a crest on this big gong. I actually forget what. Oh, in the third one, it was a rock in. Like, that was always part of the fun of it. And in this one, I was like, oh, they actually have the Paramount logo. It was the second logo up. Nothing. We had no fun transition. The other thing, and again, I'm a stickler, but honestly, there are 4 that have set up how these movies are made. Forgive me for being this much of a stickler. The credits are at the beginning of these movies. In the last 4, they're always in the beginning. This one, they're at the end. It's minor, but I'm not into it. The other thing that really bothered me, all the other movies would establish the year and the location at the very beginning. Go back and watch them all. They go 1936 Peru or China. This one, nothing. There's no 1969 New York City. There's nothing. And I just find it.
No, there wasn't. You got to figure it out. You find out.
No, there definitely was.
Mm-mm.
No. I mean, listen, I'll admit I may be wrong, but if Adam doesn't recall, and I just find that oddly disrespectful. I'm like, if you're going to do it right, because this is the last one, which is what we said last time. But this one's really the last one.
They established the year in when they were in Germany in the beginning and for the intro.
I think they might have done that.
Maybe they did that.
They definitely established when they were in New York. I remember it.
I could be wrong then, and we'll wait when it's on Disney Plus next week.
They're watching TV.
They do it in the establishing shot before they go into his apartment.
Oh, maybe they do. Maybe.
All right, I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'll take that. I didn't
notice it either because I was wondering all along. Wait, he's got a color TV, but how far? If he's supposed to be 80-ish from World War II,
maybe they did.
And it's I it took me a while when they mentioned the Apollo landing, and that's when it sort of cements. But
yeah.
I'm
really disappointed. Better or worse than The Flash?
Worse.
Worse than The Flash.
Yes.
That piece of shit.
Yeah, I found this to be worse. I admit my expectations were higher, and maybe that's why this feels worse. But I think this was just such a. It was not an interesting story. It was not that well told. It was the worst kind of cash grab. And honestly, I'm sorry, Harrison Ford. I don't want to see you with the shirt off at 80 years old. I was a weird moment. And I'm like, you look great for 80. But
it was painful watching him run. I mean, it just looked like his legs were going to snap watching him run. He was so slow. I'm like, there's no way this young 25-year-old guy is not able to keep up with him right now. But I want to add two things really fast. One, I am not that big of an Indiana Jones fan like you guys are.
Sure. Okay.
I like it, but I didn't really grow up with it as much. I mean, the first Indiana Jones I saw was Crystal Skull. That was the first one I saw. And I enjoyed it as a kid. I remember liking it. And then I think I watched Temple of Doom and then Raiders of the Lost Ark. I watched them in a weird order. But I had a hard time following. It was confusing for me. I don't know if that's maybe I should have brushed up on my Indiana Jones before going in.
No,
but I don't like that. I wish it was a little easier to follow. The fact that it was his goddaughter. I didn't know who the little short German guy was at first. Right. Took me a while to figure. I knew he was his accomplice.
Right.
But I was like, who are they, friends or? Right. I thought he was a German guy.
He's new. He was a new.
Oh, that's
addition.
A new guy.
Yeah. In order to establish her as the goddaughter.
Oh, so that was just thrown in.
Never seen him before.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. She was just. It felt like that. I didn't know who she. And then there was a weird flashback when he was on the plane that I thought was really confusing.
There was a weird because you go back to when she was a little teenager and
oddly placed.
And that's another thing that's not part of the Indiana Jones movies. You don't have flashbacks. You also don't end them with this iris shutting. Right. I get it that you can but these aren't like James Bond movies. This isn't where we're going to have a new Indiana Jones, so you can put your own, stamp on it.
Listen, the iris was a nod to old serials, just like the map where they show, we have to go to Morocco, and they show the line of the airplane on the map. I mean, that's been in almost all of them, and that is true to the style.
I didn't mind that.
I would say this. I want to give James Mangold, the director, a little credit in that there are some incredible set pieces, notwithstanding the chase scenes, which I thought were excessive as well. To the point where I'm like, wait a minute, I thought the kid had the dial, and now Mads Mikkelsen had. When did they pass it off? When did, I forgot, or I got confused.
Couldn't understand half the thing that kid said.
And it made me long for the original and Spielberg's ability to stage and really keep you engaged in these big set pieces, which this movie had trouble doing, I think. However, there were moments, and I think I really enjoyed him on horseback in New York. I thought it was heroic and anachronistic, which is again thematically appropriate for the film. I'm trying to think of another moment in the film where it felt that
it's hard,
sophisticated. It's hard to do. It's hard for me to remember. Right. Well, they aren't all there, but there are moments where you do follow it perfectly. Like when they're on the plane and they arrive in ancient Greece, and you're like, oh shit, it's a battle from 2,000 years before. It's not 40 years before. And like the big spears come through the plane. And I thought that stuff was fun. It was really fun and allowed you to participate more. Go ahead. Correct me.
No, I'm not going to correct you, but it reminds me of another confusing moment for me in the film, in that Indiana Jones tells him that he put the measurements in wrong. He tells this to Mads.
Yes.
By the way, I can't remember the Mads Mikkelsen's actual character's name.
No, I couldn't either. He says it at one point. It's unintelligible.
So at one point, Indy's saying you didn't take into account continental shift or something. Continental drift. But at another point, Phoebe Walker, says, no, it was always set so they would come back to him. Archimedes had preset the dial so you would come back to him no matter what. Or did I get that wrong?
That's a side trip. Yeah, where she says, oh my God, he broke it in half and placed this plate out there so that people from the future would come and help him in this battle against the Syrians or whoever was attacking.
So I'm like, again, I think in the long version, this is explained. Right. But in the version we got, which is James Mangold's responsibility to give us a coherent, fun, entertaining film, he failed miserably, because this thing is filled with inconsistencies, with things left over. I feel like nobody wanted to just sit there and watch the whole thing because it was too long and boring. So they were like, we just worked on this little part and that makes sense in this little part, but you put the whole thing together and you're like, wait, what? It's, by the way, I will say this. I actually didn't mind the little kid sidekick. I will never remember him
either, but Anthony hated him.
No, well, I wouldn't.
He's a racist.
No, I didn't hate him. First of all, he was just randomly introduced halfway through the film.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, which I thought was weird. I was like, oh, this guy's just okay. And he reminded me a lot of the kid from, I guess, Temple of Doom.
Well, that's that's the sort of tradition of the series, is there's a boy that helps them who's scrappy and,
which I liked. I liked that.
So they're honoring the franchise.
He did grow on me, but at first I was like, I don't know who this person is.
Right.
And then I couldn't understand what he was saying. Like there were a couple lines where I was like, what? Mm-hmm. Was I supposed to understand that? And then it was fine by the end. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have a problem with him to where I hated him.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think, randomly someone was talking about Galaxy Quest, and it made me think about that movie and how great and fun and entertaining Galaxy Quest is.
Oh, you're going to dinner.
Terrible.
No, Galaxy Quest is great. It's a great movie.
Sounds boring.
No, it's
Is it old?
Yes, but to you it's old. But there's a documentary made about it. That's how good it is.
I'll see it.
Yes, see, that's all he needed to hear.
And this movie was as far away from Galaxy Quest in terms of like just being such a fun ride, enjoying the people, enjoying the humor. Like this didn't have any of that. And I know that's a weird comparison to make, that, I should be.
I think that all of that stems, so I'm not disagreeing with you. And I still would see it in the theater because nostalgia or whatever. But the idea, I think the studio says we need a 2-hour and 34-minute movie. You don't make a 90-minute movie. God help you. We're spending this much money on it. I want to see it all on the screen. And so Mangold makes a 5-hour movie so that they can cut it down to 2:34. And he knows he's getting ass fucked by the studio anyway, who are probably going to, he's not going to get final cut. Even though it's James Mangold, I bet he doesn't get final cut. And he's I want the payday. So my point is this, is that studios, and they're going to get back to this, and we talked about it before, you can't make a 2.5-hour movie anymore. Make a 90-minute movie like normal people.
Yes, you can.
And then
I'm thrilled for Oppenheimer.
We'll see what happens with Mission Impossible, which comes out next week.
That is bullshit. I think you can make a 2.5-hour to 3-hour movie and it be a success. Look, Spider-Man was a massive success.
Yeah, but
I know you guys
didn't need to be that long.
That's what you guys are saying. No one else is saying that.
I think could do an edit on that movie and you wouldn't even notice what
it doesn't matter. It already did well. It doesn't need to be changed.
Oh, it matters. Yeah. We're not talking about box office. We're talking about
that's what they care about.
Perfecting
that is all they care about.
And this is a part of it.
And it's fun to talk about box office, particularly when Insidious Red Door beat Indiana Jones on its second weekend. I was just about to ask.
Wow, it really did. Here's what I'm gonna say. None of my friends are talking about Indiana Jones, not just because it might be a poor movie, but they just don't give a before. No one cares.
Right. No one cares.
Okay, right.
Everyone's talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Right.
That's it.
Can't wait. Should we have seen Insidious Red Door?
I don't.
Well, no. I just think it's funny that I guarantee you that when Disney, 4 years ago or 5 years ago, was planning another Indiana Jones movie, never did they think that on its second weekend that this little $14 million horror film would make more money than Indiana Jones on the second weekend.
It's pretty shocking.
That's embarrassing. Are you going to see Mission Impossible?
Yes. I can't wait.
Yes.
Now that's 3 hours or 2.5?
That's about the same length as this one, 2.5 hours.
I bet you it's going to be great. I like Tom Cruise. He never disappoints.
That's right. But that he's, we could do a whole episode on him, I think, because he's so hands-on with the movies he makes. And I don't know that Harrison Ford is.
No, I don't think he is.
He's an odd bird in that there aren't a lot of people who are afforded that privilege, and he takes it very seriously, and I admire him for that. I really do.
Yeah. Well, he cares, and there are filmmakers. There's James Cameron. There used to be Stanley Kubrick. There's forgive me,
Steven Spielberg,
David Fincher.
Yes, David Fincher, right?
We know these films. There's Chris Nolan. There are still filmmakers and actors who really, really care and put a lot of effort and time, and it shows. I may have issues with Tenet, but I cannot deny that it was a very well-made film. And I appreciate that Chris Nolan gets a huge airplane and crashes a real airplane into a building. And you can tell the difference.
Right,
it's cool.
And that's why in this movie, I get bored. I get bored watching CGI. It doesn't. I know it's not real, and I feel it. And that's why I didn't like the New York section, because I knew it wasn't real. So
that's funny. I didn't know that it wasn't real, but I did feel something was off during that. Maybe I'm saying that now in hindsight, but I do remember sitting through that chase scene and being just underwhelmed. I think what I remember thinking was, this is Indiana Jones. Why am I watching a chase through the streets? This is
something
kind of
they hadn't done before. Look, I didn't mind the cityscape at all. It felt authentic to me. It felt congested and cramped and crowded, and there's just a lot of people, which I thought was great. But I will say, that feeling of something's off, that's the uncanny valley, right?
Yes.
I keep talking about that because I'm interested in it. And I really felt that with his facial thing, which is we're going to have to get used to, I guess.
Wait, whose facial thing?
Indiana Jones, when they made him younger.
Oh,
they used him.
That was awful.
And it just didn't, there was always something that was like, oh God, wait a minute. is that on his face? Are they using somebody else's body? How are they laying it on? They didn't do dots on him, right? Very much like, and I never saw this, the Italian.
The Irishman?
The Irishman, right? They didn't do dots on Robert De Niro or on Al Pacino, or on
well, and that film was criticized for the same thing as this. Like, they needed to change his voice too. You have the 80-year-old voice coming out of 32-year-old face, and you're like, oh, that's not right. And his movements also sometimes, I mean, I think it was mostly a stuntman in that early stuff.
I think you're right. Let's agree to disagree. And I think you both made very strong points. I still would see it in the theater, despite all those things.
Did you go alone or with Michelle?
I went with this one.
Oh, interesting.
It's funny.
Michelle didn't go.
At the end of the movie, I expected to turn to Adam and be like, and I was like, what'd you think? And he was like, loved it. And I was like, what?
Yeah. I was like an old man. I was like, yeah, it was great. I only peed once. Hey, fantastic.
People clapped in the theater, though.
Yes. Well, there were older people in the theater.
Oh, yeah. It was
mostly an audience
all
of old farts.
Middle-aged people.
I have to pee. So that's always the mark we've recorded just to our limit. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Love it. Thank you for all the hard work you do on these, Adam. I appreciate it.
That is a little too late, but I can. All right. That's our latest episode of Les Idiots du Cinema. We hope you enjoyed our idiocy, and will like, subscribe, and share wherever you're listening to fine podcasts. We truly appreciate your reviews and ratings, as they help us to make the best show possible. And I want to thank my co-idiots, JP Bernardo and Anthony Caro. I'm Adam Paul, and we will be back with another movie soon. Boom.
A production of Giant Leap Industries.